So if we open up the idea that mind, body and spirit are important for healing, what does that mean? What implications does that have for how, I or we might go about treating you? We had an interesting conversation, Deepak Ravindran and I, on a long form video, which, if you're interested in this subject, I would invite you to go and have a listen to, because we sort of wax lyrical and dive deep quite into this subject actually, of maybe how healthcare needs to change and stop just putting fires out and look at root problems, and that can extend into social services and education and families and so on. But to summarize, I think if we're going to be effective in treating health and chronic health, then all the evidence actually is that you can't have a singular approach, and you can't say, well, I'm just going to tackle the cognitive here, or I'm just going to tackle the physical, or I'm just going to work on this kind of spiritual evolution and expect everything to melt away. There is validity and value in all three of them, and that's been part of my own healing journey and lived experience, as well as my own clinical growth over the decades. But I think a cognizance and an awareness that all three of them are important, and some understanding of how they impact us is important. Very often in the realm of trauma, we find that this has some impact on our relational dynamics, either with ourselves and with others. If we've got traumatic experiences, that might cause us to get triggered in our marriages, in our relationships. In fact, it's almost inevitable that they will, because there are those that sort of say, look, our marriages are there to actually heal the wounds of early years or even generations ago. Our activation in these things is going to be as a byproduct of past experience and overwhelm. That's going to have, and that overwhelm is a key part of what defines trauma, and any overwhelm means we're outside of the ability for the body to process that thoroughly, and that's going to mean that we then shut it down, we go into functional freeze states. That's going to change the immune system. Look at all the other videos we've done on the PNIE system. This is an interrelating set of systems. Our connection to other people, our interactions, our traumatic experiences in life, and how our body processes them or not, will have an impact on the physiological response, our brain's responses. If we're experiencing, for example, a lot of early developmental traumatic events, it can shape everything. It can shape our immune system. It can literally shape the way that our brain grows and evolves, the biochemistry, and all of that also in terms of how safe we feel to be in relation with another, or even to be in relation with self. And so really the answer is, I think we need somebody to work with who has an awareness and a cognizance of all of those things. In that therapeutic healing process, the key is that we understand that all of those dimensions may need to be looked at. And it may be that we need to guide people and work on all of those facets, not just saying, well, I'm just going to work on this muscle spasm in your back, or I'm just going to work cognitively on how you're processing. How is family? What is happening? How are your relationship dynamics? How is that? Oh gosh, I can begin to see how that's playing out over here, and why I've got Crohn's disease here, but why I've got this, interesting relational dynamic going on over here. The light bulbs going on for people when I'm doing this work is beautiful to watch, as they sort of think, oh wow, this is all so connected. And it makes so much sense, actually, when you help people to view it through that lens, if they're at a point of readiness to want to do that. And, there's no judging of anybody who isn't at a place where they feel able to do that. That's in a way, that's the job of a good skilled clinician, is to be able to meet people where they're at and to work with what we have, and maybe help them over time to feel safe enough to explore those areas. The deeper wounds than a cut, the deep, deep wounds of developmental, transgenerational, emotional shock, trauma, these things take time to restore, and people that have been victims of abuse need immense patience. Why would it feel, body might be saying, why is it safe to let this person in a way that other people have abused that trust? Well, that I don't expect you to. Why should you trust me? That I get that you don't, and that's okay, and we can work with that, and maybe we can have some restoration of that trust, and that relational dynamic. It probably isn't even words. There is something about the presence of another human being, and that is so healing. And so dishing out tablets, being organic about the way in which we go about healthcare, we need to move beyond that. We really do. I mean, think about your own experiences. If you've ever been to see a doctor, you don't really have a clue how many certificates they've got, how many pieces of paper they've got, how many courses they've been on. You don't know, and frankly, you don't care. But what you can do is you can tell the doctor that you feel you like, and it feels that they see you and they meet you, and you get a sense of, actually, they know their stuff. But most of it is about their human connection to you, and that's what we really need.